Hey everyone, this is Colin at Target Sports, your pro shop for shooters and hunters. Today I'm going to do a follow-up video on the gripping of the pistol, those fundamentals, with the placement of your finger on the trigger and the trigger pull. So this is, again, something that's going to be unique to the actual gun you're using and your hand size. So keeping that in mind, I prefer a smaller gun because I have small hands, and we went over that last video with proper gun in hand placement. So we want to start there, get a good gun that fits your hand well, and then make sure that you can find the trigger appropriately, which is again what we're going to be talking about in this video. So if I'm going to pretend that I'm left-handed for right now. The sweet spot that I'm going to want to move my finger to the trigger is going to be directly behind the nail bed. So if I was to take a safety pin and stick it straight through here, not on the side, but in the middle, it should pop out in the dead center. That's going to be the sweet spot of the pad. So I got a couple other marks here. I have at the very tip, and I have in that first crease. Those may work for some people depending on their hand size, but ideally, the best spot to have the most contact and the most strength to pull that trigger straight back to the rear is going to be the center of the pad. So as I move my finger to the trigger, and every gun here is different, single action, striker fire, double action, single action, how that trigger moves, the poundage of pressure needed, these are going to be things that you're going to have to physically learn about that particular gun. So let's look at a Beretta right now, and I want to just cover the different spots that I've got on this finger. My Beretta is empty, and it is chamber clear. So it has a single action trigger, which single action has a lot of slop, a lot of play before it gets to that firm, breaking point, and then it's then going to break. It also has the double action mode, which is going to be a lot of travel, a lot of poundage of pressure, a lot of distance before it breaks. So like a revolver, your finger has a potential to move and slide a little bit on that trigger. And if you've got small hands like I do, you almost have to get deep inside that trigger with that finger, and then maybe roll that finger out to the sweet spot so that we're not manipulating the gun in a negative fashion. So when I say negative fashion, that's going to be these two spots, the crease and then the tip. If I hold the trigger on the center of the pad and I pull it straight back to the rear, there should be zero muzzle movement drastically to the left or to the right. Now, there's always that little bit of wiggle or movement. Now, I'm going to move my finger to the very tip, which if I'm left-handed and I've got it at the very tip, I don't have enough finger and I don't have a lot of power to pull, so I end up pushing the gun off to the right-hand side. Now I'm going to be moving my finger all the way deep on that first crease, which means I have too much finger, and I should be pulling the gun to the left side. Again, keep in mind here that I am left-handed. So this is something that you're probably going to notice yourself, more so than watching this muzzle movement. And when you're looking at your shots on target, that will be a good indication as to maybe what you're doing or what you're doing incorrectly. So again, remember that every gun has a different trigger pull. Every grip frame size is different, and everybody's hand is a different size. This is what we're striving for, though, is center of the pad. So now we're going to talk quickly about pulling the trigger straight back to the rear and then that follow through. So I've got a Smith & Wesson M&P, empty mag, chamber clear. So with a striker fire gun, the trigger is potentially or most likely this safety itself. So I have a lot of movement here, and then it gets to a firm breaking point, and then a very short travel. So when I set myself up and I'm going to get ready to fire, I have my stance, my grip, I have my gun out, sights on target. I'm going to take my first deep breath. When I take that first deep breath, I'm then going to move my finger to the trigger, get that sweet spot, which is the center of the pad. My sights are already aligned on target, and I press all the slack out of that trigger. Now I'm at that breaking point. Now I'm at this breaking point. I'm going to take one more deep breath. I'm going to let half out, pause, and press. After the gun goes off, I'm going to continue to pull back in the same poundage of pressure, all the way against the back of that gun. What I'm doing is I'm pulling fire and continuing to pull. That allows less excess movement. By moving that finger off the gun, it prevents excess movement of the muzzle, which gives that bullet time to get out of the barrel, past the muzzle and hit my target. So again, when we're working on good trigger finger fundamentals, a lot of that is going to be diligence on keeping that trigger straight back to the rear after the gun goes off, watching that bullet hit the target through our sights, breathing, resetting, and then repeating. So again, let's recap. Find a good gun that fits you well. Make sure that it's lined up in your hand in the right spot. Try to find the sweet spot of the center of the pad on your trigger finger. Work on minimizing excess muzzle movement by focusing on that target in the front sight and pressing that trigger straight back to the rear continuously the whole time at the same pace until the gun fires. And after the gun fires, continue to pull back for 2 seconds. And that's your follow through. That allows that bullet to leave the gun without excess muzzle movement of you moving your finger off the trigger. Once that bullet has impacted target, take a deep breath, reset the trigger finger, and then repeat. All right, shoot straight.